Good morning, good day, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, wherever you are on planet Earth. So I'm working at a dam, inside the tunnels of the dam, up and down shafts and lifts and stuff, doing a bit of a clean-up. But while I'm on here talking, I wanted to bring something up that's quite interesting. So in the media right now, they're talking about this ex-headmaster school teacher who he and his brother have shot dead two policemen up in Queensland at a farm. He's gone off the grid. He went off the grid, and actually when the police turned up, they were looking for him as a missing person. So I guess he was reported missing by family members or something, we don't know. But what's really weird about the case is the media is covering, we don't have the full picture, which is really, really strange. So what we're told is there were 6 people dead, but they're only really talking about 5. So there's the 2 police officers who were shot dead, surprise style, by the 2 brothers in camo. One of the brothers being the missing person they were going to the property to inquire about. A neighbour came over because he heard all the commotion, and he's been shot by the 2 brothers. So you have 2 police officers dead. You have, I think, a couple more hiding in the bushes, or at least one, a woman. They set fire to the grass. She was worried about being burnt to death. The neighbour's been shot. 2 coppers dead, a neighbour dead. There's 3 victims, right, of this atrocity. Police reinforcements go out in the number of 10 or 11, and in a firefight they take out the 2 brothers. There was a girlfriend who was in a relationship with both brothers. She's dead too. She's number 6. But no one's mentioning the circumstances of how she died. The father was interviewed. Well, they approached him at his house, private property, and he's an ex-missionary. So don't know what happened there with that. Other than that, he says he's lost 2 sons. So the missing person, who was one of the gunmen who shot the 2 cops, he was an ex-headmaster school teacher of at Walgett, and I've been to Walgett many times with my work. It's north of Dubbo, and the town's basically 50% white European, 50% Aboriginal. So he was a headmaster of a school that would have been would have had a lot of Aboriginal children in it. Apparently the school educational board booted him out. We're not told why. So I'm gonna ask a few questions here. Based on that, the media's painting him as a crazy conspiracy theorist that believes Martin Bryant was the patsy in a government takedown of removing guns from the Australian population, which a lot of people out there, there's a huge movement in consciousness to the potentiality and possibility that that is really possibly true on a big scale. But the media is only saying that, you know, wild conspiracy theorists, and he also said something about like the Illuminati playing its game, which, I mean, using the word Illuminati sort of dropped it down to another level again, because who's really researching and looking into things really uses that term. Like that, the term Illuminati is for teenagers who, you know, they're like fans. They're fans of the idea of that, and they're virtue signaling the euphoria of the idea that there's this scary Illuminati. So they haven't really gone deeper to look into it, to, you know, make the reference of deep state or shadow or whatever. But it's intriguing. So no registered guns. They're wearing camo. They had a shootout. Ex-headmaster of a school that was 50%, probably 50% Aboriginal at least. We're not told why he was booted out of the educational system, so he's probably disgruntled. I'm going to guess A, he didn't get any vaccines, or 2, based on him voicing his opinion about certain conspiracy theory stories, they didn't want him there, or he might have, because of his power of influence over teaching kids to think that way, which was anti-state, anti-government, perhaps. Like, this is just a theory I'm putting out there. The other thing could have been, because I've heard stories, you know, did he witness medical teams doing certain things that he was against his sense of morality? Is that a thing? I don't know. But whatever it is, like, they said he had a dark history, but no one's talking about that yet. We're not hearing that in the media. So the media needs to tell us what that dark history is. The media also needs to tell us how the girl who was in a relationship with both brothers came to die. And we also need to know, like, even though the 2 police, if he was deeply involved in something on a larger scale, the 2 officers that were gunned down probably wouldn't have even known what that was, if it is indeed a real thing to begin with. So they're just taking orders and doing what they've learnt to do, probably without any knowledge of the history of this person and what he's what he's seen and done. Because like, we need to know what led up to this. But, you know, it just seems like it's what's the word? It's very convenient that, given the times we're in and what we've heard might be coming with military lockdowns and so on, maybe, or up in Queensland with another potential some sort of COVID lockdown status. And here you have some prepper-style guys with unregistered weapons wearing camo gear. They describe camo, so I don't know if that means hunting camo or military style camo. Shooting at police. One being a missing person himself, that the police were going to the property to ask the brother about the missing brother. Missing brother shows up. They have a shootout with the police. There's nothing bigger going on there. It just seems a bit weird that someone who was a headmaster of a school in Walgett, 50% Aboriginal Australian, it just seems a little bit strange. So I'd be asking more questions. And why was he off the grid? Does that mean he was paranoid? Does that mean that he felt that for whether it was a psychosis and he was insane, or is it simply that he was somehow, through some higher agency unknown, being engaged in some manner which is unknown, that placed him in a paranoid position that put him off grid, and hence him carrying on about Martin Bryant? We need to ask these questions. We can't just take the confusing information that is very minimal and also present it in the minimality, if that's a real word, of what the news is painting around this. And it's always going to be, when 2 police officers have been killed, it's always going to be, you know, shown in a certain light. It always has and always will be in that sense. But we don't really have the full story to be watching the news, taking it as gospel truth, and then virtue signalling those values when we don't have all the facts. You know, we really can't do that. But that's what we humans do when we watch the news, and it tells the story in a certain way that gives us a narrative of which is almost like a definition of what's right and what's wrong, who's the good guy and who's the bad guy. Because we don't really know the history. We don't really have the full story of what has gone on here. I find it very disturbing. And given the way everything's been presented, I wonder if there's some agency that is trying to cover their ass, and unfortunately this guy is dead, so whatever he knows, if he knew something, or was involved or engaged in some agency, we may never even know. Perhaps he was just a complete psychotic lunatic. We don't know. I just had to drop into Revesby in Sydney, pick some things up out there. Heading back out Penrith way, up into the sticks, just out the back of Penrith in the out there. Anyway, so I have some updated speculative information about what we were talking about earlier with this shooting of 2 police officers. So apparently the missing person they're looking for, who he and his brother shot dead these 2 young officers. So the 2 young officers were, or one of them was only weeks out of coming out of the what do they call it, the academy, so initiated out of the academy. So another question I would be asking is, one, something's weird here. If the behaviour of the shooters, the 2 men, the brothers, if the behaviour was that they were expecting an authority to turn up, then and yet they've sent out 2 fresh young officers with not much experience at all. That's interesting. Even though there was nothing to show any registered weapons, but these guys behaved as if they were expecting an agency to come down hard on them, which is interesting. I got an unconfirmed report that it's possible that the 2 shooters were then shot by police, who then fell to the ground and were then shot again in the back of the head, at the top of the spine, which is a very specified way to ensure someone's dead, especially if you're especially it's something that someone in the military would do. I'm not sure if even squad teams, you know, that do special operations within the police force, unless they've actually got a history of their own as being special operations soldiers who are now working civilly in the police force to do that sort of thing. So that's quite interesting as well, that they were made certain to be dead by an extra shot to the back of the head at the top of the spine. If that information coming through is true. The other speculative information is that the missing person, the ex-headmaster, who was one of the shooters, may have been some sort of advocate for Aboriginal people or Aboriginal kids in Walgett, and he was disgruntled about seeing a medical rollout system occurring. There was also some rumours that there may have been even, if he's like the headmaster and has some sort of emotional connection or care towards these kids, if that's a thing, and he was watching them, you know, get that thing, and he saw some get injured or even die, there's sort of some rumours suggesting that he was pissed off about that, and also that it's speculated he witnessed Indigenous people being paid by the government to have that, and that's another reason. I'm not defending this person. I'm just, people around different places are feeding other information. So it seems that there's something else going on here, that it's remotely possible that if these guys were expecting a higher agency in paranoia to show up, and that's why they did what they did, unless they were it was an MK Ultra thing where they were primed to do it, so in other words, big setup. But even if not, and it was paranoia. That could also be indicative, potentially, that by deliberation they sent 2 young, unexperienced officers out there, knowing what was going to happen, because it was all part of the plan. So what I'm suggesting here is the possibility of an orchestrated sacrifice in order to create a story that has a narrative for everyone to see. Not the hidden story of an involved agency trying to protect itself and to stop other future threats from other like-minded potential scenarios that could uncover some truths about certain things. Taking this preemptive action and setting this whole thing up in order to give themselves some time and protection. Yeah, sort of feels like there's a bit of a ransom going on here. Some people high up in politics, some threats, secreted threats, sort of a, not a ransom, but you know, yeah, someone, I don't know, it feels like to me intuitively when I look into it, someone's pulling some strings here high up that communicate through higher channels that are orchestrating and dictating things in a certain way, and letting a scenario play out that the media is focused on. That's what it feels like when I look at it intuitively. I'm not defending anyone's side or anything. I'm not saying who's right and who's wrong here. I'm just sort of saying that there's something like that. It feels like there's something like that going on. And it's an interesting time. Like, I've just been in Revesby, right? Guess what I saw? Someone putting up a testing, a PC testing tent is being put up right now. And it's right before the Christmas holidays. Why would they be installing testing, virus testing tents, and signs are going up in Revesby, Sydney? Interesting timing, if you ask me. I think that's really interesting. So anyway, I'm coming through sort of the southwest of Sydney, where there's this massive development of a rural area going on, because the new airport has been built out here and they're updating all the roads. There's new housing estates going up. There's a massive transformation of huge blocks of land all over the place out here. It's like whole new suburbs of Sydney are being created out here in the scrub, which is quite interesting. Anyway, I'll probably be loading this video and the previous one up as I'll just jam them together and put it on YouTube as one video. I might have to get rid of 1 or 2 words for fear of having another strike just for mentioning a certain word, which is interesting. So I'll probably be doing that. So anyway, thank you for watching. Nanu Nanu, live long and prosper, and talk to you all soon.